Hello, welcome to this new live of the R letter, R for rest. So it is live because it is a one-on-one conversation, virtual, but live, about rest. And today I excitedly am in the honorable company of Shiva Rufe. Yes, honorable, I want to use that word. She deserves it. And before I give her the floor, I just want to say a few more words about what the R letter is and why I came up, how and why I came up with that idea. So the R letter is originally a written project I have come up with on the basis of Trisha Hersey's trailblazing book, Rest is Resistance. I don't know if you can see because my background is like hiding it. Oh yes, here you can see it. Good. This book was published in 2022, and Trisha Hersey has been working around rest, has been a NAP Bishop of Rest for more than a decade now. And please buy her book. It's mind-blowing. Support her work. It will change your life. And so having read a book and having myself experienced a lot with rest, because I needed to, I came up with this idea of asking other people how they rest, because I think we can learn, we have to learn from each other. So the R letter is a weekly newsletter where I interview a professional and ask them about their relationship to rest. So I usually do it in written form, but I thought, let me try to do it also in a more live form with special guests. Some people I really want to listen to for a long time. And Shiva is on the table today. Thank you again for being here. And my obsession with rest, it's not my own obsession. Trisha Hersey was before and many others as well. Why are we obsessed with rest? Because, rest is fundamental to life. Without rest, literally, we die. I think we tend to forget. That's the basic, that's the bottom line. But the world we live in has made sure that we forget that we need rest. And we have come to a point where we are even feeling uncomfortable speaking about rest, especially in professional spaces or relatively to work or how we do our work-life balance. Why? Because what we call grind culture, something that Trisha Hersey deconstructs a lot in the book, is shaping our every move and our every thought. So to me, the R letter is not only about learning how others rest, but it's also just to open up a space where we can publicly, unashamedly talk about rest. And that will help, I believe, I hope, I believe and hope, that will help normalize conversations around and practices of rest, in particular in the workplace, because we all need more rest in our lives. Literally, we do. And that's only with getting more rest, and I think we'll be able to build a better world. Again, that's the paradigm that Trisha Hersey is operating from. And I will quote her now. She says, and that's very important, rest should be available and legitimate for everyone, because she says, I quote, rest is not a privilege because our bodies are still our own, no matter what the current systems teach us. And the more we think of rest as luxury, the more we buy into the systematic lies of grind culture. So really, rest is not a privilege, it's a right. It should be a human right, actually. There is a right to leisure, actually, that is recognized in the human rights, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And to finish, before I really give the floor to Shiva, rest can seem like this unattainable thing, this thing that we still have to perform. And no, please, let's not get our productivist, capitalistic mindset into rest. Rest is a shape-shifting, lifelong praxis. We have a relationship with rest. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Sometimes we like certain forms of rest, sometimes we like others. Rest also varies across individuals, across communities, across geographies, across seasons, stages of life, and history. So really, let yourself be free when you are experimenting with rest. And rest is not only an individual practice, because that would still be a very individualistic way of looking at it, but it should be a collective practice. We should support each other in resting, because only if we are all well rested can we really change the world? And so that's why for me the R letter is also a very modest step in that direction of doing rest together, talking about rest, inspiring each other to rest. And on that, I will give the floor to Shiva now with a first question, very important, most important one. How are you today, rest-wise or everything-wise? You have the floor.
Thank you so much, Han. And thank you again for trusting me with your community on this. How am I rest-wise? No one's ever asked me that, by the way. I love the question itself. It makes you pause and think. So the honest answer is I'm mentally feeling rested, physically not. So mentally rested because one, I have the opportunity to work for myself. So I was able to schedule a lot. I started work at 10 in the morning today, right? Really 10:30, honestly. Most of the day was just spent on the balcony, thinking strategically, journaling. So mentally, I feel well rested, but physically, like my back hurts, my butt hurts from sitting so much. I'm not sleeping so well. I've got a food coma. Like there's a disconnect between my mind and my body right now, which also for me is it means that there's something off. There's something off that I haven't pinpointed exactly that I need to work on in terms of rest.
Thank you for being honest, because often, I mean, this question we don't get asked often in certain settings, but even if we are asked, we tend to give the blanket answer. Oh, I'm good. Because, I mean, why would you start saying that? Blah, 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 blah. So thank you for being honest, because when we start being honest with others, often it makes us realize how we're really feeling.
Yep.
So now maybe that has helped you realize there was this disconnect, and maybe later you might want to dig deeper about why is there such a disconnect, maybe do something about it, or just stay with it and accept it. In any case, thank you for sharing it. And now that we know how you are, we are willing to listen about who you are. Could you introduce yourself in a few sentences? Tell us as well about your work, because your work is really extremely interesting. Go.
This is another tough question. Like the personal ones are always hard for me. So who am I? I'm really rejecting like the individualist everything. So even thinking in terms of who am I, it's more what communities am I in? Who am I in community? So I am a partner, I'm a friend, I'm an estranged sister, I'm a daughter, I'm a community builder, I am a giver, a receiver, and what do I do for work? I think the short and fun answer is I teach people not to be assholes. I teach them to learn how to use their power better. So like people who have systemic power, teaching them what that power is, understanding systems, and how they can impact systems for the good of all, not just for themselves. I think that's it. I think that's the best way to describe what I do without really getting into the details of it.
I mean, teaching people not to be assholes is quite a mission. There's quite some work to be done.
It's a lot of work, and I love it. When I tell my clients that, I do this, they always laugh and they're like, oh, you must be in high demand. And I'm like, yeah, but no one wants to accept that they're an asshole, but everyone still hires me.
Isn't it? And I mean, I guess people hire you and they're like, yeah, I mean, I'm hiring her, but I'm not really an asshole myself. I mean,
exactly. Yes. Obviously. I'm hiring her to help all the other assholes in the organization.
Good. Whatever the reason, as long as you hire Shiva, we're good, because we're making progress. So good. Thank you. That's very inspiring. So any assholes listening, I'm including myself, obviously, you can hire her. She's there to help us. And we need a lot of help, because we don't realize how toxic we can be, even
exactly,
especially when we are acting from our good intentions, the usual nice racism, sexism, you name it.
You got it. Exactly. Yeah. It's exactly that. An asshole is someone, we're all unintentional assholes. Yeah. That's the concept. So it's just learning how to be better humans in community with each other.
Yeah, own our shit. I'll
Exactly.
say it.
The only way we can clean it up is by owning it, by looking at it.
Yeah. Same way, actually, I think with rest or with being tired, the same way we can overcome being tired and always being tired. I think we live in a world where everybody's tired. You know, everybody's, I'm so tired, I'm so tired. But do we really actually own our tiredness? No, because we keep saying it. I had a therapist that taught me that. She was like, okay, I hear you, you're tired. I accept that. I validate you. But you can't just tell me you're tired and not act.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
have to do something about it. Otherwise, that means you're just saying no, you're making noises with your mouth.
Yep. And also, what does it even mean? I was thinking about this earlier today. Like we use that word tired all the time, but I don't think it's not specific enough, right? Like there's just so many nuances in the concept. Is it that you're overworked? Is it that your body's feeling achy? Is it that your soul is hurting? Are you sleepy? Like, what do you mean by tired, right? What does that actually mean? When we give it such a big blanket name or statement, it makes it much harder to actually face it and do something about it. So I'm trying to change from saying I'm tired to like really being mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual about it. So my body is feeling achy, specifically, my lower back and my shoulders. My soul feels like it's farting, like I've got spiritual indigestion. So just trying to get really clear on what that is, because if I don't have some sort of clarity, then I'm just going to get down that spiral of I'm tired, I'm tired, I'm tired, and then that's it.
Yeah, clarity helps clarify the means of addressing it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
Exactly.
I that's a very good. I like what you said about clarifying, because I think I don't do it enough myself. So I will also try this exercise. Okay, when I feel tired and I tell myself or I tell someone I'm tired, I'll try to find a better, a more accurate word to describe where I am at. A bit like you did very nicely when you told us how you were. You really managed to distinguish between your mental state, your physical state. Beautiful, beautiful. You're a great teacher already. We're loving the lesson.
Thank you.
Thank you. So now that we actually got a little bit already into rest, we are all here for that. That's the gossip. That's what we want to know. What is Shiva's relationship to rest? Has it changed? How does it fit in general in your life and in your work life in particular? Tell us everything.
Ooh, so it's I didn't know the concept of rest until recently. I grew up in a family, we were refugees. My parents worked 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. So all I saw was hard work. That was it, right? And like as an immigrant, we're all told the same story. You have to work hard, you have to study hard, you have to get good grades, which didn't leave any room for rest at all, right? Like, so I would go to school, and then when I come home, I'd have to clean the house. My sister and I'd have to clean up the whole house, do our homework. There was no time for resting. My parents wouldn't let us take naps either. Like they were convinced that naps are unhealthy. And to this day, I have like such a taboo in my head around naps. Even I love the nap industry, love it, love what they're doing. But physically, it was like beaten out of me to take naps. If I did fall asleep in the middle of the day, my parents would come running to the sofa and like wake me up. So the relationship with rest was never a healthy one, right? It was, and growing up in the United States as well, that culture there, like you rest when you're dead, you sleep when you're dead, work hard, play hard, like you always have to be doing something. And I didn't realize how much I had bought into all that bullshit until a few years ago. I don't know how many years ago. I don't know how many years ago at this point, but I had a breakdown. I had a mental, emotional breakdown. Physically, I couldn't, keep going. And I didn't change, right? Like I was working my butt off. I was working myself 12-hour a day, 7 days a week, without realizing I was just continuing the pattern of my parents. And then when I decided to work for myself, like for real, I think this was about 3 years ago. Everyone makes that decision when you have enough privilege to do so. A lot of us start thinking, all right, well, what do I want to change in how I work compared to what the system has taught me I need to do? And, the ideas are like, oh, I can go hiking on Wednesday. I can go have a menu del dia, whatever I want. I can, start working late. And course, I didn't do any of that. None of it, right? I was still waking up at 8 o'clock in the morning, starting to work at 9, worked nonstop. I'd be like sitting there having to pee so badly, be like, but one more email. I'm just going to write one more email and then I'll go to the bathroom, right? Working straight through lunch, not even like listening to my body, none of it. And then I think like 1 year in, I was freaking exhausted and I'm like, I can't do this. I can't, my body will not let me do this anymore. So, I don't remember exactly what it was or what the moment was that changed, but I think it was a combination of things. I was learning more about capitalism and the harms of it. I was getting more into anti-racism work. I was getting more into collectivism. And I think all of that kind of combined with the freedom of working for myself to be like, I have the power to change this. So I'm going to do it. And it's not going to be easy. It's a shift in mindset, a shift in timetable, juggling differently and just changing all the habits. And that's going to take time. So I had to start putting boundaries around it. So I need to put really strong boundaries around rest for me to be even able to have a relationship with it to begin with. And it's worked. It's gotten much, much better. But I still noticed, like recently, I realized I'm still trying to do all the things, right? Like I'm still trying to do 5 different things, like trying to save the world as if one person alone can do that, right? It's ridiculous. Like when you stop to think of it logically, you're like, no, this doesn't make sense. What the hell am I doing? And you need rest even to get to those thoughts, right? Because if you're not resting, you're just going on the hamster wheel constantly, not able to, those thoughts don't even have the space and time to come in. But so I still find myself having these thoughts and like wanting to do everything, always being busy, feeling guilty if I finish at 5 o'clock and being like, this feels weird. What am I doing?
Something is missing.
Like something is missing. Exactly. Like, and like, it's almost like I don't know. It's like a painful thing to like close all the tabs and turn off the computer and step away from my office. And so it's like the relationship I think has changed drastically. Like it took me 37 years to get here. So in the past couple of years, I've made a lot of progress, but that programming is still so freaking deep in there that it still creeps up in so many things that I do. And I honestly think part of it is like my body needs to be at full speed to want to sleep at night. So this is the other thing I'm realizing about like the aches and pains. It's partly for sitting on my ass for like so many freaking hours a day. It's partly that. And I think the other thing is because I'm sitting all the time, I need to move, but then I need to balance that in my head of like, okay, but you know, rest can be many different things, right? It doesn't have to be just laying on the sofa. It could be reading a book. It could be taking a walk. It could be going to the spa. It could be whatever the hell I want it to be. So this is where I'm at right now in my relationship with rest, trying to understand what does it mean for me? What does that look like for me? What works for my body at the age that I'm at? And also noticing it's probably going to change in the future as well. And that's going to be okay. So that was a big word. Sorry, go ahead. I like verbally vomited a lot there, but I don't think I answered all the questions either.
No, I mean, I'm not too much into vomit usually, but yours, loving it. Delicious. No, really, it was beautiful. I wanted to pick up on a few things. I think, yes, because we all, I think, struggle with rest, but I think when we come from certain communities with certain vulnerabilities, there is maybe a bigger struggle because there has been even less possibility of resting and or being exposed to rest practices when we were younger. So I want to say that. And that means that our definition of rest tend to be narrow, especially in the current world. So we tend to equate rest with napping. I mean, the nap ministry, she called it like that. And I think that's very good branding. But she says it herself. I mean, rest is not just napping. There are many different ways of resting. And there are many experts that have shown that actually you could narrow it down to 7 different types of rest. Physical, social, spiritual, mental, emotional, and I'm missing one, but it's okay. I can't be perfect all the time. So if you know that there are these different types of rest already, you're opening up your mind. And then I think that's why it's so important to learn from each other, because then we might not have the idea ourselves, but we hear about someone doing something and then we're like, oh, let me try and let me do it. So I think for me, if I may reflect to what you said about moving the body, I've realized personally in the past few years that I need some active rest in my life, because just passive rest, like sleeping, reading, is great. But my body, especially because we spend a lot of time sitting in front of computers, active rest is key. Walking or even sports like running or whatever you like to do, rowing a boat. I mean, you name it. So yeah, I think that's very important. And then, as you say, the difficulty to change the mindset when you say, when I'm closing down my computer. And I think here two things come into play. First, there is the guilt associated with not being doing, because deep down, and that's something you've reflected a lot yourself on, I know, through what you share with your community, but because you associate what you do with your worth, your value is still related to you doing something, producing something. So when you stop producing, at least work-wise, formal work-wise, then of course your heart, your soul, your capitalistic soul becomes like anxiety ridden. And I think it is true for the majority of workers out there, especially white collars, privileged like us. But I think it might be even truer from people like you here who are trying to change the world. Because here there is that thing about the moral aspect of your work, you know, where you're like, okay, literally, I'm trying to save the world, as you say, because you think you can save it on your own. This ego is talking.
Exactly.
I mean, who can take a break from being God? No one. I mean, come on, you can't. There's no paid holidays for God, so why would I have one? And so here I think it's the guilt, the capitalistic bred guilt, but also the ego, which gets really activated when we're trying to work for better good. And we have to remind ourselves, wait a second, no, as you say, you can't change the world on your own. And you won't be able to do it if you are in a bad shape anyway.
Exactly.
So please, if you want to react.
Yes, definitely. All of that 100%. Yes. Starting with the last point first. Yeah, it's something I struggled with a lot. Like you said, I talk about it a lot. I'm very aware of it, that in our society, we've identified our worth and our value as humans to what we do, and not just what we do, but how much we do, right? How busy we are has become a symbol of our status. Not so much anymore, but before, I remember people showing off about how little they slept, how many hours they worked, right? Which I know is ridiculous. And I cringe now thinking, when I used to definitely be that kind of person too. But again, the remnants are still there. The programming is still so deep there, so that when I do take that, close the laptop at 5 o'clock, I finish, that guilt comes in. And like you said, when you're working towards something much bigger than yourself, which we cannot do alone, it has to be done in community. Like, there is no savior. But again, individualism combined with capitalism comes together to create this mental dynamic and programming that is, I have to do it all. I have to be it all, right? And I can do it all. And it's bullshit. And so it's part of my rest practice has become just reminding myself this as much as possible. It used to be conscious, like I used to have Post-its around my laptop to remind myself, like, capitalism plus individualism equals not wanting to turn off the computer at 5 o'clock, right? And now it's almost like a mental ritual, like, okay, this is my fuck you to both capitalism and individualism. I'm turning off my computer. I'm stepping away from my office. And so it's like, I have to repeat these mantras to myself. But mind you, once I do it, I don't think about work at all. Like, once I close the laptop, once I'm outside this little hole, it's done. It doesn't stay in my head anymore, which is great, right? I mean, mind you, like, with anti-racism work and anti-capitalism, once you see the matrix, you can't unsee it. So in all of life, I do see it, but I'm not sitting there trying to, like, write proposals or, be a LinkedIn warrior or anything like that. And then the thing you said about passive rest and active rest, like, and the communities that we come from, yeah, like, I look back at my parents, they have no idea what active rest is, not a clue. And back in our homeland, they definitely did. But once they were in the dynamic of working in a country like the United States as immigrants, as people of color, it was just pure passive rest. They were so physically tired that the only thing they did was sit on the sofa. And to this day, my father only sits on the sofa and watches television. Like, there is no template of rest. There is no role models of rest in my family to look at. And it's very sad. And it's one of the things I'm trying to change as well, to try to not be a role model. I don't believe in people being role models. I believe in communities being role models, but still just trying to show up in that way again, so other people know you can do this, right? It is possible. There's other ways to rest.
And on this, let me segue actually in the next question, because it's about teachers. So you're saying, unfortunately, it seems that your parents, at least, were not your rest teachers. And I believe we all learn from someone at one point new practices or new ideas. So I was wondering, where did you learn how to rest? Who taught you? A grandparent, a spirit, a friend, a partner, a manager, an animal, a religious leader, a flower, a plant? You know, who taught you to rest?
Interesting. Again, it's something I never thought about until you asked the question. But the things that pop into my mind immediately: one, Trisha Hersey as well, the Nap Ministry. When I came across that account, I was like, what is this? Oh my God. And the more you read their work, you're like, holy shit, this makes so much sense. Like, it brought a completely different lens to the concept of rest. So that was my starting point as well. And then the two things are battling in my head for like second place. There isn't a first place or second place, but cats. So I look at cats. I had two cats growing up, and they're super playful, right? They love to play. They're mischievous, but they also rest forever. Like, they love to lounge around and sleep. So I look at that and I'm like, "Ooh, that would be a nice way to be," right? And my partner. So my partner is phenomenal. He works a lot. Like, he was a professional chef, and the timetable for professional chefs it's disgusting, to be perfectly honest. He switched now, and he's a programmer, and he loves what he does, and he loves learning. So he will, stay on the computer for hours beyond working, but it's never, ever, ever about doing more, about his identity being attached to work. No, that concept is just foreign to him, right? Wow. So for him, it's like, I do what I enjoy. I do what the hell I feel like. One of his previous jobs, bless him, he always worked smart, not necessarily hard. So he found ways basically that he would just work, he'd get paid for a full day, but he'd work half a day, and the rest of the time he was like learning programming or playing the guitar. Like, he'd literally be sitting at his desk just like playing around with the guitar. I'm like, what is this way of being here that I don't understand this? Like, and you don't feel guilty? Yeah. And he's like, no, why the hell should I feel guilty? Like, capitalism means that we are just working to make somebody else rich. So yeah, I don't care. I don't give a shit. Like, it's not my company. Like, wow, okay. And it's also, so he does a lot of stuff for himself, but he also does a lot of stuff in community. And again, like, so much of my programming is like, you have to take advantage of all the time that you have, right? Everything you do has to be something big. So I don't know how to just hang out. Like, that is a weird concept for me. So it's specifically like, I have to go to a museum, or I have to be in nature, or I have to, like, there's some, I don't know, that there's always some sort of agenda tied to my rest, until I met my partner, where for him, it's like spontaneous, just calling a friend, seeing who can hang out, usually the same people, just going for a drink and just talking bullshit. And it's something I've come to love so much, to just physically be in community, be fully present with people, no phones, no distractions, just engaged in the conversation. Conversation is not even about saving the world. It could be like the most random stuff, everything from, music to thinking of random Instagram accounts that we can create that we'll never create. I don't like, whatever, So that's also been a very interesting rest teacher for me, my partner and his way of being.
It sounds like one, and I think what he pointed you towards, and something I've also reflected a lot on, is your relationship to time. And I think that is a practice and a philosophy that forces us at one point to reckon with how we relate with time. And I think when you say you've had to learn to just be there and not have an agenda, it's because before, for you, time was a commodity that you had to make the most out of it. So it's, again, a productivist outlook on
Exactly.
time, isn't it?
Exactly. Yes, 100%. 100%. Yes.
And
And it's
it seems like, yeah, your partner is like, I mean, I don't own time. I don't wish to own time. I experience time. That's what I do. And there is no debt relationship or what is it, subjugation, relationship. So thank you for pointing that out, because I think, to me, more and more, when I think about my own relationship to rest, or when I listen to people talking, I think we always end up to that, our relationship to time. Usually when we struggle with rest is because our relationship with time is not a peaceful one, actually.
Yep. And you know the expression in the global minority, time is money.
Oh, I forgot. Thanks. You're right. We
It's
go
drilled
back to
into
the
us.
valuing, to the financial valuing of our worth as a living being, you know. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah. Great.
And
So
this
yeah,
is how
go.
all those systems come into play to create such deep internal programming that keeps us trapped in these cycles over and over again. Because it's not just one thing we have to redefine and remember for ourselves. It's not just rest, but it's also our value as human beings, our concept of time. It's multiple things that we have to reckon with at the same time.
Yeah. And I think that's why you and I, we were both so impacted by Trisha Hersey's vision, because I think what she pinpoints, the lens she proposes, is a political lens on rest.
Yes.
It's not about rest, you know, oh my God, hashtag self-care, hashtag selfie, hashtag, I'm taking a bubble bath here. No, not at all. This could be ways to implement the political vision, but the vision is still political. And that's why the book is called it's called Rest is Resistance. And that the post-it you said you had on your computer literally resonates with that. When we are resting, we are breaking the power, the influence that capitalism, individualism, patriarchy, white supremacy, colonialism has on our bodies. Literally, we're saying, no, I refuse to be a tool, to be something from which you extract
Exactly.
labor, whatever you name it, from, because enough is enough, especially when you come from what you call, Shiva, global majority, when already your ancestors have been exploited, their bodies. I mean, Trisha Hersey is a Black woman. Her ancestors were slaves. That's what she says in the book. My ancestors, their lives, their life forces were pressed, extracted by the capitalistic system. So today, more than ever, I have the highest, most divine right to rest as a political stance.
Yep. And I'd never heard of that before. And it makes so much sense. Like it's such a powerful shift. And the way that she expresses it, like you said, it ties again into all of the systems, and it brings into history. It's a reimagining of the future and the rights that we have. Like, I have to read the book, by the way. I've never read the book.
Please. I mean, what she does, both in terms of content but also in terms of form, it's brilliant. It's a book you will have to read and reread, because I think every time you read it, it resonates differently. It's a book, to me, it's a book that will be with me for the rest of my life, and I'll go back to it maybe once a year. It's almost, I mean, and it makes sense. It's almost a little Bible. It's a rest Bible, and you go back to certain passages. So yes, whenever you have the time, go for it. But I know you'll make the time for that for sure. Now let's move on to the next question. And you already tackled it a little bit, but I wanted to know a little bit more about that. You talked about some of your rest practices. You talked about the post-its around your computer, but I wanted to know what was one rest practice beyond this one that really works well for you, especially when you're working, and how did you come up with it? If you want to share that with us.
Again, tough questions. I don't know why these are so tough for me. So picking just one, I don't know if this is so much a practice. It's more, well, the practice itself would be boundaries, I think, at work, because I'm aware of how deep the programming goes within me. And, I've made a lot of progress, I think, but I'm always aware that it creeps up, right? It can creep up. So one of the strongest boundaries I've put is boundaries on my time. And for example, I've gotten out a permanent out of office email. So anytime, and a Black woman taught me this, like one of my coaches, she had a permanent out of office that just said, expect responses within 24 hours, and just kind of like setting expectations. And I thought, I think this is a brilliant idea. How do I make it mine? And I personally need to put more boundaries. So any email that anybody writes me, they'll get the same automated response, which is like, hello, human. Here at Shiva Rufa, we are leaning into this concept of humanity instead of being a robot. And the reasons why, and it's a lot around the political reasons of like being exploited as a person from the global majority. And what that looks like is working 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday, working from 10 till 5 or 6. I don't take meetings before or after that. I don't do work before or after that. Don't expect responses to your emails immediately. It might take me up to a week to do that. So it's just a list of kind of boundaries around that. And it's one of the best things I've ever done, in that it very clearly states what those boundaries are. A lot of people love it and respond to it and respect it, but a lot of people don't. A lot of people just don't read it. They don't read it, right? Or they don't take it seriously. They don't think I'm going to take it seriously. So then it becomes another rest practice, is just kind of not educating them, but like enforcing that boundary, So if they write to me on a weekend or whatever, I don't respond. If they're like, asking for an urgent reply, I don't respond. And then when I do respond, I'll be like, hey, as my out of office message says, expect up to 3 days to a response or whatever. Or I'll always go back to that until they finally realize, okay, she was taking this seriously, so I got to take it seriously too. She's not going to budge from her boundaries. So if I want to work with her, I have to work with the boundaries that she has set. So I think that's the one thing that I would share, in that you can put those boundaries. Again, it's much, much easier that I work for myself to do that, but it's made such a massive impact, because it's allowed the space and time for rest, other forms of rest, to actually happen.
And thank you for sharing that, because I was hoping, because I got your automatic reply and it blew my mind, and I was like, I hope she's gonna mention it, because I was reading it, I was just like, oh my God, I'm such a fan, I want the same. I mean, I can't have the same, obviously, but I'm
why not
use the same thing. Yeah, I can, as you say, I can make my own like version of it that speaks from me or who I am. But I love it, and thank you for sharing it here today. And I think it does two great things, because I think, and like telling people your own boundary, setting a boundary is the first thing, but second, you communicate it to the world. And the thing is that you're teaching people about that boundary and training them even. But then it's a good reminder for yourself every time, because I think we always think, yeah, I have boundaries and stuff, but do you though? Because it's a nice idea, but are you yourself enforcing your own boundaries? It's not just like talking about how many boundaries you have. So I think having the email is a way to check yourself. Like I put the email, so I have to kind of be accountable here to myself, at least.
Exactly. And because it's like literally everybody who communicates with me becomes my accountability partner. So
that's it. So I love it. So please, everyone, flood Shiva's emails now and get the best out of office reply you've ever gotten. Please. No, I'm kidding.
And use it. Like, people have taken it, they've copied it, like copied and pasted and just changed the timetables for themselves. Use it, please.
Hey, thank you. That's very generous, because sometimes we want to set a boundary, but we might not know how. We are afraid to do it badly. So having a template is actually a great tool. Thank you for that. And now let me ask you to share something else. I'm moving to another question, a bit less difficult. I asked you to prepare maybe a picture or a music or a video clip or any other cultural, if you want, artifact that represents rest, and share it here now with us or explaining what it is, describing it. What is it? I'm curious.
So there's two things. One, I don't have it with me because it's an action that you do. And it's going to sound a bit weird, but so one of the things that relaxes me the most, or one of the things that gives me so much joy, is the smell of coffee and drinking coffee and just everything around coffee, right? So I love in the morning, I've got my Italian cafetiere. I love spending the morning just setting it up, putting it on the stove, letting it bubble, and the smell of it like taking over the kitchen. But the second thing I love is putting my, a little bit of espresso into my cup, and then that moment that I take milk of whatever kind that you want, and you put like a little bit of it into the coffee, and this beautiful like white cloud emerges, right? And it's something so small, but I don't know, it just takes me to another world. It's like my own little 10 minutes of, I get completely transfixed. I'm just staring at this cloud. I'm like, wow. So that's the first thing. So the first one is an action. And the second one is a fuzzy blanket, which I always have with me.
Oh, cute.
It's a blanket I've had for 10 years. It's still soft and fuzzy. I sleep with it all the time. It's like a kid that carries around their blanket all the time. That's me. I go from the bedroom to the office to the sofa with my blanket. Of course, it has to be washed very often. But it's just, I don't know. I like the texture. The texture reminds me to bring softness into my life. The texture reminds me of warmth. It's versatile. I don't know. It's always with me. And the second I have it on me or I'm touching it, my body just relaxes.
Wow. That's powerful. Yeah.
Yep.
And yeah, go.
One thing it's connected to the whole conversation. And I don't know why I connected to a warm, fuzzy blanket, but the word lazy, and the connection to rest. And again, it goes back to that thing of like, time is money. We have to work. And if we're not constantly producing, then we are lazy. And that's something I've had to really grapple with as well. It's a word that I had used for myself so often. And I mean, everyone around me will always tell me, I don't know why you always use that word for yourself. You're the least lazy person that I know. But I also thought, how can I reclaim this? Yeah. Right? How can I say, you know what, screw that. I want to be lazy, right? Lazy is not a bad thing, right? So something I'm going to try out starting today, which just occurred to me, is how can I be more lazy? Every day I'm going to think to myself, how can I be more lazy today?
I say yes. And also I want to say my dad used to say, lazy people are actually smarter. Because when you want to do something the lazy way, you're going to think twice. You're going to try to find the most efficient, but in the good way, not the productivist way, the way like, okay, how can I spend the least effort to produce the outcome that I need? A little bit what you were saying about your partner when he used to work in that job where he was paid for a full day, but maybe only worked half a day. He was not calling himself lazy, or maybe he would have done so proudly, but he said, I can do the work in half a day. That's what I'm going to do so that I can enjoy the other half. Yep.
And he would actively set up systems, and the company loved him because they thought he was going above and beyond. He's like, I'm just trying to find ways to work less. That's all I'm doing.
I think that's what we should all do, actually.
Yes, 100%. And this whole quiet quitting thing as well. I'm like, oh my God, please, let's embrace it.
And I think, it brings us back to the idea that a lot of people, I mean, some communities have been advocating for, the universal minimum income and the fact of having a shorter work week. Like if we all work less, there is more work for everyone. There is a better distribution of resources and financial resources through income. Why don't we do that? Why aren't we all just more lazy and therefore more sustainable?
Yep.
Why don't we all?
This goes back to that bigger picture of like, we can't do things alone. So I always, imagine if everyone just decided to work in that way. Organizations wouldn't have a choice. They would have to adapt to it.
True. And that's where, I mean, people are like, yeah, but I can't do like that in my company. Okay, there are strictures, But then there are ways in which you can work around, you can inspire your colleagues, maybe you work with one manager that is open-minded and try to change the company culture from bottom up.
Exactly. This is a lot of what I do. That's where it speaks into the power piece of like teaching people the power that they have and not that fucking personal power, right? We always look at the personal power that I have to be a role model, to change things by myself. No, nothing has changed ever. Nothing has ever gotten done by one person doing it. It's bullshit to think that one person alone can change the world. No, that's never happened. It's always been in community with others, right? So we're much, much stronger as a community. So I always tell the participants in my training, yeah, you can't change anything by yourself, but imagine this whole cohort. Imagine if all 30 of you who are senior leaders decide to start showing up differently. That can have a domino effect. That can have a deep impact, right? And not just changing the culture, but there's many different policies and processes that you can change as well, that you have direct power to change.
Actually, you do. Yeah. People, the scapegoat, you know,
Yes.
the system or the whole organization, because it's easier than to own. We go back to owning your shit, to be responsible. This is what I have in my hands. This is what I can work on. And that's maybe not a lot, but that's already a lot in itself.
It is. Yeah. It is. And it goes back to that community care. And if we want more rest, then we need to come together as a community to start creating those systems for it.
Yeah, you're right. And on that, actually, let me segue into the last question, and something that you have been, that is related to you, something you've been working on. It's about ancestry, the idea that we are all ancestors in becoming. And I thank you for teaching me about that. And so we are all someone's future potential rest teacher, hopefully, right? Because we are all, I mean, I hope for a world where we will all be resting more and more and more. So what rest lesson, if you had to choose one only, what rest lesson would you like to leave as legacy?
I think it would be embrace life and choose life. And life is so much more than work. Find a world for yourself that is outside of the work that you do. Expand that as much as possible. And we're not used to that, right? Because we've made work our entire life. So when you're going to start doing that, you're going to be like, what the hell do I do with this time? What do I want to do? What can I do? And you're still going to be tempted to be like, I want to go on these amazing trips, right? I want to spend money here and there. And no, expand your life. Expand your life. Find 100 things that give you joy and start doing it.
That's a beautiful homework. Thank you, teacher. So for next week, guys, we have to come up with a list of 100 things that give us joy. I've never done that, and I'm going to try, actually. Thank you. Do you have one already?
I have been working on mine for years.
I'm sure.
Years.
Sure. Yeah, I'm saying for next week, guys. I mean, you know what I mean. There is time. Don't worry.
It's a continuous process, and what gives you joy is going to change and expand over time. So the list grows and goes in different directions, but it just reminds you there's all this stuff that will give me joy, that will expand my life, and I can do it. Yeah. Instead of just having it in your head, put it down on a piece of paper, communicate it with other people.
Yeah.
Start living into it.
Yeah, and come back to it whenever you're lost and you feel okay. I'm stressed or I'm aching or whatever. Oh, let me go back to my list. And actually, that could be a list about joy, but it could be also a column about rest, or highlighting the activities that give you a sense of restfulness, so that you can use it in that way too. Amazing, teacher. You've been great, even giving us homework. Look.
Of course, and I expect you all to do it.
And perfectly.
No, never perfectly.
I know.
Perfection is oppression.
I know. No, do it imperfectly. Rest imperfectly. Just experiment. As you say, expand your life, which means just try and fail and try again and have fun trying.
Exactly.
Thank you so very much, Shiva. That was a great conversation. Really.
Thank you for the questions, and I loved so much of what you brought in. You didn't notice, but I was like frantically taking my own notes on a post, be like, this is a great, yes, this too, oh my god, yes.
Yeah, I was like, what is she writing down? I mean, she's the teacher. Why is she taking notes while the student is speaking? I don't understand. Okay.
Because we're all teachers.
I know, I'm kidding. Thank you. It's very kind of you saying that. Thank you. So please, if you want to learn how to be less of an asshole, you know where to go. If you want to learn about a great email template, you know who to email. Really, she's there, and we're lucky to have her. Thank you again very much, Shiva.
Thank you so much.
I wish you a very nice and hopefully restful end of the day.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. And thank you for everyone who's watching.
Yes, thank you to them.